Alright folks, it's another conditioning video, but it's one that's been a long time coming. I probably should have addressed this at the beginning of the channel, but I've been getting a lot of questions about it lately, so let's get into it. How do we make our conditioning more effective? What we need to do first and foremost with our conditioning is determine what training effect we're going for. Are you trying to build your aerobic base? Are you going for VO2 max? Or are you just moving around and burning calories? Starting with base building, or zone 2, there's a couple of misconceptions about this. First and foremost, zone 2 is not the same thing as doing 10 minutes of bike and 10 minutes of step mill and 10 minutes of treadmill. The specific adaptations obtained from zone 2 training come from extended, unbroken sessions in that, just below lactate threshold talk test level of intensity. You cannot just hop on a treadmill and immediately be in zone 2. There is a shifting bioenergetically that has to occur, and that takes a meaningful period of time, like several minutes. And then to milk out the adaptation, you have to stay in that zone for another meaningful period of time. Especially with machines, if you stop, get off the machine, wipe it off, go to another machine, put in your weight, whatever, beep, 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 then start that machine up, and then stop, and then get on another machine, those breaks break you out of that bioenergetic state that you need to be in to reap the benefits of zone 2. If your goal as an athlete or a health conscious person are the myriad benefits of zone 2 training, well, that's great, but in order to get that, what you need to then start programming for yourself are extended, 30-minute to an hour sessions, so that your first 10-15 minutes are kind of getting into zone 2, and then the remainder of the session is going to be staying in zone 2 to reap that training effect. Now let's say hypothetically, because of your sport, your lifestyle, your goals, you don't care about zone 2 training and you don't have time for all that, right? You want to just do like 10-15 minutes, maybe 20 tops of conditioning and be done. Well, that's where your sprint work comes into play. You play a field sport that involves, intermittent bouts of running. You want some speed to complement your leg strength. You want to work on your VO2 max, your top end. Then that's when you do those shorter but significantly more intense conditioning sessions. Now you can structure these a bunch of different ways. You could do, like a 1-2, 1-3 work rest interval. It all depends on, number one, how intense of a sprinting interval is going to be, and number two, how long or what duration the interval is going to be. Whether you're doing 10-yard, 40-yard dashes, 100-meter sprints, 200-meter sprints, or, in my opinion, the absolute worst distance, 400s and 800s, the rest interval and amount of intervals are going to be commensurate to, number one, the specific training effect you're going for, but also, number two, the intensity of each interval. And you can even just use something as simple as time, like 30 seconds all out, 90 seconds rest. 30 seconds all out, 90 seconds rest. Do, 7 of those, call it done. So if time is a determining factor to what type of conditioning you engage in, then your most effective option is going to be sprinting or some kind of high intensity interval work. And that looks the same regardless of means that you do it with. Whether you're running outside or on the bike and you up the resistance level for a minute and then reduce it, or on a step mill where you up the setting, 4 to 6 points and then reduce it, so on and so forth. Or you could even do a high, medium, low. But again, if we're trying to make the most effective use of a short period of time, my recommendation is you do very brief, very intense intervals with a rest period commensurate to the intensity, and then shut it down. If time is a concern, that's your best bang for your buck, conditioning wise. Sprint work made me a worse athlete, said no athlete ever. When do you do your conditioning? Well, that all depends on what you're doing it for. If you want optimal benefits, and I hate that word, but if you want to at least attempt to maximize your benefits, your best bet is to separate your conditioning and your lifting sessions, or do them on separate days. So an AM PM type thing, or separate days. Me, I don't necessarily like doing that because I just don't have time to go to the gym multiple times a day. I'm not a professional athlete. So while it may be suboptimal, in my opinion, the next best thing is to do your conditioning first and then your lifting, because the lifting will be the final signal that your body receives before you go into a recovery phase and eat your next meal. Now, of course, if you're gonna go in the gym and attempt like a 1 rep max squat, a new PR bench, you probably wanna front load your session with that when you're freshest. So this is more advice for like just general population, not doing any sport specific training. The other thing is that even if you prioritize the conditioning stimulus by doing it after you're lifting, the training effect of conditioning is very transitory. It wears off after a couple hours, whereas the training effect for lifting will persist for days if it's upregulated. So it's kind of a poor trade-off to downregulate one training effect when the one that you're upregulating is only going to last a few hours anyways. And that's kind of the other thing too with conditioning, folks. Because the training effect is transitory, to really get the adaptations to stick, you got to do conditioning pretty frequently. The lead researchers recommend, 3 to 5 times a week. Whereas you can build muscle if you're training with sufficient intensity off way less frequency than that. So that's it, folks. It's called strength and conditioning for a reason. Lifting alone isn't the only answer, and we can certainly do a lot better than just moving around and burning calories. Conditioning is more than just cardio. It's cardio true, but it's cardio with a specific training effect in mind. So hopefully this video gives you some ideas of how to make your conditioning more effective so you can make the best use of your training time. Thanks for watching.